Hi, this is Phil Huber. I'm the pastor of Inlet Community Church. This time when we as a church are not able to gather, I just wanted an opportunity to communicate, especially with my congregation, but also to any others who may benefit with hopefully what would be some spiritual nourishment during this time. The Lord's been bringing my attention to Psalm 46. First, it was sent as a text to my wife to encourage her by another of our church members. And she took those verses from Psalm 46 and put them as the banner of our church's Facebook page about a week ago. And then soon after that, it just happened to be, Psalm 46 happened to be our reading in the Encounter with God schedule that we use in our small group to guide our daily Bible reading. So over and over again, God seems to be bringing my attention to Psalm 46. I look out the window of my office and I can see Black Bear Mountain just across the way. And there is something reassuring in the fact that even in the midst of all of this upheaval, the mountains are right where they should be. And Black Bear Mountain is there just as it has been every other day as I look out my window of my office. But the psalmist imagines a scenario when even the mountains have given way, when there is so much unrest that even the most stable things are undone. Let me just read the psalm for you. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice. The earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." Psalmist imagines this violent earthquake in which the whole world is being unmade. The stable mountains are falling into the sea. The chaotic seas are swirling and foaming and covering the earth. Really, it's a picture of Genesis 1 being reversed, where all of the distinctions between land and sea that God had established in creation are being undone. And this is how far this assurance reaches, even if the earth under our feet gives way. Even if the mountains that rise above us are hurled to the bottom of the sea. Even if the whole natural order were turned upside down, God cannot be shaken. And in the midst of this violent upheaval, God can be trusted. So the psalm begins with this assurance. God is our refuge, place of protection, security. God is our strength when circumstances are beyond our ability to handle in our own power. His strength is sufficient. He is a present help in time of trouble. In these moments of extreme upheaval, God is near and not difficult to find. And then we get a reset. Verses 2 and 3, it speaks of the mountains shaking and the waters roaring. Those same two verbs, shake and roar, are used again in verse 6, though there it refers to nations roaring and kingdoms shaking. And here he's imagining not natural catastrophe, but political upheaval. Dysfunctional government, untrusted leaders, partisan deadlock. When it seems like those who have been assigned the decision-making for the nation are short-sighted or insincere or posturing for re-election or digging in their heels for a fight with their political opponents or just foolish and insensitive. When there's no steadiness or assurance in their leadership, and when the political environment seems as diseased as the physical environment, again, we're offered assurance. This time the promise is that there is a better city, a more lasting residence, a more sure citizenship. The psalmist describes it as the city of God, the place where the Most High dwells. And this assurance about this place. In verse 5, God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. The point in that whole first section of the psalm is that whether the threat is from natural disaster, earthquakes, or floods, or storms, or whatever, or from political upheaval, wars, governmental dysfunction, really, whether nature or nations, God is our refuge. He is stable, He is attentive, He is trustworthy. Twice we hear of shaking and roaring, mountains and seas, nations and kingdoms. The writer of Hebrews in Hebrews chapter 12 quotes the Old Testament prophet Haggai when he prophesied that God would once more shake not only the earth but the heavens. And then the writer of Hebrews offers this interpretation. The words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken remains. And then this conclusion, Hebrews 12, verse 28. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful. And so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe. We tend to read present circumstances, especially when they're traumatic, as the final word of reality. Those things fill our field of vision. They dominate our attention. They become our preoccupation. Now it's things like global pandemic and social distancing, flattening the curve, self-quarantine. This is what we're facing right now. And it will hold our attention, will demand our focus, it will insist on being in the spotlight. But the psalmist would remind us that behind those circumstances and under them and around them and over them is a greater reality, a larger reality. God is sovereign. He is in control. And the things that can be shaken are bringing into sharper focus the things that cannot be shaken. The psalmist knows that no matter how bad things look around him, his God is greater and has purpose in shaking the things that are temporal. It's a reminder that he is created not for the temporal, but for the eternal, things that cannot be shaken. And then this familiar verse, Psalm 46, verse 10, he says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." And now we can appreciate the full import of that. Exalted among the nations, because when kingdoms and nations shake and roar, when the political environment is in chaotic upheaval, God and his rule are steady and sure. Exalted in the earth, because when the mountains shake and the seas roar, when there is physical catastrophe or tragedy, God is our refuge and strength. So he is exalted above those things, greater than nations and nature. So be still and know that he is God. the full impact of God's supremacy in the world doesn't hit us and hold us and shape us unless we become still, quiet before God. The only way that we can embrace that is to stop running and stop scurrying about and stop filling your life with busyness and turn off the TV and the computer and get alone and be quiet and let the mammoth realities of God's sovereign control in the world wrap around your heart. And here's the takeaway. It's repeated twice, verse 7 and verse 11 in the psalm. It's like the chorus of the song, the hook that we're left with. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And we could unpack that word by word, but maybe it's best if we keep it very simple. The Lord Almighty is with us. That is an expression of God's intimacy. He is near. He loves you. And He is sympathetic and compassionate toward whatever you are feeling in this moment. Anxiety, fear, depression, unrest, anger, disappointment, sorrow. God loves you and draws near to you in that. So allow Him to be your comfort. And then it says, the God of Jacob is our fortress, and that is an expression of His power. He is in control. He is a fortress of protection for us, no matter what we may be facing. Threat of disease, the worry of financial pressure, instilling your heart. This is what He wants you to know. That He is strong enough to help you through. So in this moment, as coronavirus continues to spread, as life as we know it has been completely disrupted, here's what He wants you to know. He loves you more deeply than you can comprehend. And He holds you secure, more secure than you can possibly fathom. So rest in that.